everyone. Welcome to my live marriage coaching call. Thank you so much for being here today. Before we get started, this is Tina Heisman, and I am a certified master life coach specializing in marriage. I have a free private Happy Wives community on Facebook where you can come to get inspiration for your marriage, and I do stress that it's a happy place. Not a place to come and complain about our husbands. It's a place where we are looking for positive inspiration in our marriage and problem solving from a more positive perspective. So you can find me at facebook.com/groups/The Happy Wives Community. Easy peasy, right? Okay. So if it's not easy peasy for you, just head on over to my website, tinaheisman.com, and there's a banner at the bottom of the front of the page. So let's jump right into it today. This is about respect and talking about our husbands. And so it's important for us to know that our husband's need for respect is hardwired into him by God. But many of us wives unknowingly hurt our husbands by showing a lack of respect. But we don't mean to. We just don't know better. And it's because we're wired differently. It doesn't even occur to us that we're hurting our husbands. And part of it has to do with the fact that many of us are strong women, right? Like we work, we manage our household, we manage everything that's going on, in our lives and in our kids' lives. And there's just, we're independent. And so sometimes this just goes a little bit too far. And most importantly, I think because we are wired different than men, like we have this desire to help, to want to help. But here's the crazy thing is for men, that help feels disrespectful sometimes, how it comes from us. So here's the example I shared with you in my email. Back in 2009, when my husband was in the MBA program, he had a lot of studying to do. In fact, so much that, he would go to work all day to provide for our family, and then he would come home at night, and on the weekends, he would be sitting at the kitchen table. Like I have the vision in my head. He was studying. And I was alone with the kids. I felt like a single mom most of the time. It was a really challenging time. And our kids were little. They were 3 and 6. So, being the mom and the person who takes care of everything in the house that I was, one day I said to my husband, something I thought was helpful. I said, here's a time when you can study. I'm going to take the kids out of the house for the afternoon, and you can study. And I got a negative reaction from him on that. So I offered him free time, if you will, and I got a negative reaction from him. He was angry, and I just didn't understand it. Like I thought I was being nice and helpful. And I wanted to give him time to study when he didn't feel like guilty for not being with us. But boy, was I wrong. And it has to do with his wiring. And he wasn't wrong either. It was just something I didn't know. Well, of course, it would be nice if he knew enough about himself to not, get angry and express anger. But we worked on that after that. So how is it that when a wife thinks she's being respectful and helpful that her husband feels disrespected? It's because in the language and in the heart of a man, what is most important to him is, do I measure up? Am I good enough? Your husband wants to be respected for who he is on the outside, whereas you want to be loved for who you are on the inside. Your husband wants you to see him as capable, that he can do anything. So when a wife tries to help her husband by telling him when would be a good time for him to study, there are two possibilities for what your husband might be thinking. If you get anger as a response, he might be thinking one or both of the following two things. The first thing is, she doesn't think that I'm smart enough to figure out when to study. And the second thing is, she's trying to control me and tell me when I can study. Now, I know these are not things in your mind. You're just trying to be kind and helpful, and you want the time with your family to run smoothly. But these things are actually deeply hurtful to your husband. They make him feel disrespected, which in his mind is worse than feeling unloved. This is huge. This is a concept that is based on research. I'm not just making this up here. It is based on my own life experience for sure, and many other women too. But author Shanti Feldhahn did a research project on the difference between husbands and wives, and she found 75% of men would rather feel unloved than disrespected. Crazy. 75% of men would rather feel unloved than disrespected. That respect is so important. It's hardwired into them. And we've got to remember God put it there. So it's not wrong. And we need to learn how, if we want to love our husbands the way that they need to be loved, how can we do that? So if it's something that you are working on, if you've come across these little anger triggers in your husband when you think you're being helpful, remember that while you as a woman want to be loved for who you are on the inside, your husband's different. He wants to be respected for who he is on the outside. And Shanti Feldhahn's research showed that men felt respected almost everywhere except home. In fact, her research showed that only 1 in 4 men feels appreciated at home. So that's a big disconnect from what we really want. So that's something that we can work on. If we want our husband to feel loved, he needs us to respect 3 things: his knowledge, his opinions, and his decisions. We need to respect the fact that this is so crazy. Whereas women, we would love help. We would gladly accept help. Our husband wants to figure it out for himself. And you know why? Because it makes him feel like he conquered something. Men need to conquer things. They need to fix problems. I know you've heard that before, that they're problem fixers. This makes them feel affirmed as a man if they conquer something. So we need to remember that. And instead of helping them, we just need to learn to try to provide more of an atmosphere of respect. Because here's the crazy thing. Are you ready for this? Help, the word help in the language of a woman is interpreted as critical or a lack of trust in a men's language. So you think you're helping, but your husband thinks you're being critical or having a lack of trust in him. So let's just go back to my example of the homework as a way to look at how could I have handled that differently. So if my offer to take the kids out of the house for some time so he could study didn't go over very well, what could I have done differently? Well, one thing that I could have done is told him is, maybe like called a little meeting, a weekend meeting. Hey, let's sit down and talk about our plans for the meeting or for the weekend. And in this manner, you as a wife would say, well, here's what's on the calendar and here's what I would love to do this weekend. And so then you ask your husband, what would you like to do this weekend? I could have asked my husband, what would you like to do this weekend? And he probably would have said, well, I need to mow the lawn and I need to get all this studying done and this project, blah, blah, blah. And so then you would say, okay, so, what's going to work for you on that? What do you, when do you want to do that? and let him tell you. And so I think I want to give you an example. Like that weekend, there was a family birthday party, and so I wanted him to be able to come with us. And so that was part of my motivation for telling him that I would take the kids out of the house so he could get that studying done. And so what I should have done is shared in a little meeting, the calendar for the weekend and what I would love to do. Instead, I would love for us all to go to this birthday party this weekend. But I would have to be okay with the fact that he might not want to go. Maybe he thinks that's a waste of his time, and the better thing to do would be to study during that time. And I know that might not make you happy, that sometimes your husband's going to choose something that you don't prefer, but we really need to respect their decisions. And I can tell you, though, if you will start working on this, your husband will please you with his choices more than he displeases you. So that's the why. Like, I get that question from women, like, why? Why should I do it this way? And it's because, number one, you will make your husband feel more loved and less hurt. And two, truly this will come back to you, and that your husband will feel happier. He'll want to spend more time with you and the kids, and he will make you happier with his decisions when he doesn't feel like you're dictating his decisions to him all the time. So, like, that's what I have found in doing this is that, and here's something you will find in Shanti's research as well. Your husband deeply wants to please you. But if you're anything like me, you've created an atmosphere where your husband feels like there's nothing he can do to please you. And so that's frustrating for them. They just kind of give up. So if you're finding yourself, and if your husband's ever uttered those words to you, this is a great little wake-up call about trying to implement some of this idea of respect here. So it's just starting. It's just starting one day at a time, one interaction at a time. I would say if you have something in your mind right now where you might have realized, oh, there I was dictating to my husband, you could bring it up and apologize and tell him, I just learned something new. Like, that's a great way to open up a conversation with your husband, is to say, hey, I just learned something new recently, that when I handled this way, and you got angry, I was confused by that at first, but now I understand better, and I just want you to know that I'm working on that. It's a great way to open up the conversation with your husband. So I would just really encourage you in that. And Shanti Feldhahn is the author I'm talking about. Her book is called For Women Only. So if you wanted to check that out, that would be a great resource. And I also have on my website a free mini marriage makeover to help you through some of the sticky or challenging situations that you might have in your marriage. So you can head on over to my website to pick that up at tinaheisman.com. It's free. And don't forget, I have the Happy Wives community on Facebook where you can get more tips and information like this. And, of course, I also offer one-on-one marriage coaching for women only. And I use these principles from my own life and my own experience in improving my marriage, really rescuing it from the brink of being over, and also research like Shanti Feldhahn provides in her book. And it's also, these are based on not like some textbook series or anything. These are based on real life situations and real life scenarios and things that really work. And I want you to have these tools. So please, I thank you so much for joining the call. And I want to say, please reach out to me if you have questions or need help. My email is tina@heisman.net. And have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining.